Hello everyone, welcome to the webinar today. This is Glenn Kendall with Concourse hosting, and you are at Tableau Paint by Numbers. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about prospecting for major donors. For those of you that are new to GoToWebinar, this is the control panel. You're going to want to minimize the control panel because it takes up a fair bit of real estate there on your screen. Before doing it, there's a section down below for entering questions. So you can click on that and pop it out, and that way you can ask questions as they come up, and we'll be answering them during the webinar. And but you can then click on the little arrow there up at the top and collapse the rest of the control panel down, and that'll give you more space to see what's going on the screen. And I need to do that myself here, so I'm going to collapse that and move it somewhere, hopefully out of the way, somewhat out of the way. Cool. So with me today is Kendall.
Hello, everybody.
Hale is a marketing associate here at Concourse, and also has spent a fair amount of time doing Tableau consulting and Tableau training for us as well.
Happy to be here today.
Today, I actually changed this around a little bit. So originally, when I came up with this idea for prospecting major donors, I was playing around with doing analytics and looking at analytics on the database and looking at giving trends and patterns related to giving that might be, clues and things that you can look at to help with major donors. But then Tableau came out with a new version of their software, 10.2. And that got me really excited because there's now some new cool stuff that I started to dig into and geek out on. So I'm changing the content of this a bit to focus on specifically on GIS data and spatial files and using that as a way to prospect for major donors. The other stuff with analytics and whatnot, I'm sure I'll come back to that again, in 6 weeks or something like that. We can do there's so much to do in relation to major donors for different ways to look at things. But with Tableau 10.2, there's a new capability where you can connect directly to spatial files. And we'll talk about why that's so awesome and so important. So we'll talk about the spatial files, where you can get that data, what's in that data, and then talk a little about extracts, Tableau extracts and filtering. And because there is so much data you'll be working with, this is an important thing to be able to just work with the data and manage it. And then, of course, it's going to be even more useful if you can connect it with your actual gift data, kind of put the two together. Okay. All right. That's what we're going to be covering today. So GIS data. GIS is just a U.S. government standard for the geographic data. And what I'm looking at right here is I've gone to the King County, which is Seattle is in King County. I've gone to the King County portal, which I just Googled this. I just Googled for, GIS King County, and it took me to this page. And this is the downloads for their GIS data that they manage. So you would want to do this for whatever county that you'd be interested in looking at data for. So wherever the prospects are that you're looking at, that you're interested in, go to whatever county that is. And everyone is a little bit different. But it'll be something similar to this, where there'll be all kinds of data that's available on here that the county is really responsible for managing. So specifically, what you want to do is you want to look for the property shapefile. So in this particular case, we're looking at land, parcel, and tax data, right? So since the county is the one that manages this typically, that's why you want to go to the county site in order to download this information. So this is basically the ownership, the tax information around that land parcel, every single parcel in the whole county, the tax information, the property value for that. So that's what you're going to want to get. The shape file is the one that we're going to be working with today. And up here, you can see there's an explanation for what these different data formats are. The shape file has the layers. So what it is a map layer, really, that you would see within Tableau, as well as it also has data information in there as well. There's also these other formats that's like a KMZ format, which only has the map layer in it, and it doesn't have any data associated with it. But that's one thing that you may not necessarily know is in there, is that this shapefile actually has data in it for all the property values. So that's what we're going to be looking at. So I downloaded this already because this was a really big file. This was almost 400 megs to download, and that's even compressed. So that takes a little while to download. And then within there, I went ahead and extracted it. I'm going to go into so I took the file and extracted it, and then here's what was in there. All kinds of stuff. It's worthwhile to go in here and just kind of look at this and see, what's available. Of course, you want to look at the disclaimer and the terms of use, which basically just says, yes, it's okay to look at this data. They're not going to guarantee it for whatever purposes it's using. They may change it at any time, that sort of thing. But it's okay for us to do what we're doing here, to look at it like this. And then there's FAQ files that are just HTML documents that sort of describe what you're getting in these different data components. So it's worthwhile just to pop into here and take a look at what some of the things are that's included. So this particular one here is for the parcel data. And so it's showing you the different things it's including, like latitude, longitude. In this case, there's one that's jurisdiction. So this is including city information in here, so they code it. So basically, they're telling you how they're coding the data. So these are really reference files that we can use. This right here is the most important thing that we're looking for, is the present use. Because, again, this is parcel data for the entire county. And so these are categorized into all these different categories here. See this? This is a lot of different things. There's single-family homes, so residential use, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, houseboats, whatever, nursing homes, farms, condominiums, ski areas, bowling alleys. There's a lot of different categories of things. So that will become important later when we want to do some filtering. And, there's other information, too, that you may want to filter on or look at. But it's just worthwhile to go in here and take a look at how they're coding the data. Okay. So as I mentioned, this is a new feature in Tableau 10.2. So I have Tableau 10.2 that I just installed recently on here. I still have Tableau 10.1. You can install them side by side. So if if the Tableau server you're connecting to hasn't been upgraded to Tableau 10.2, for example, you can still keep Tableau 10.1 and play around with it. Okay. So when you open up Tableau, there's a new option in here, Spatial File. Again, this is a brand new thing in Tableau 10.2. So now you can just connect directly to Spatial Files. you couldn't do that, or at least couldn't do it easily before. So let's do that. Spatial file. And I just downloaded this earlier today. So we're doing, was it parcel or parcel address? I think it was parcel address. We'll open that up and see. So a lot of data in here. So it's going to take a little while to load this. Again, if you have any questions as we're going along here, feel free to ask those in the window. But you can see in here, in the spatial file, there's other data elements that it's including as well. And we'll just go through this as we're waiting for this to load. Actually, I'm going to tell it to only load the top 1,000 rows, so we're not having to wait for it forever. So it's got zip code, latitude, longitude, property name, all this, block information, present use that we were talking about earlier. But also notice in here it's got the appraised value. So this value right here, this is the appraised land value, and then this is the appraised improvement. So together these would constitute, say, the property value. One is the value of the land and the other is the value of the improvements on the land. So again, this is for all the parcels in all of the county. So this is really cool to get all this information. And then we have going back over here, we have the full address of this as well. So zip code, full address, property value. So if we go over here into sheet 1, so we're just going to create a worksheet real quick, just to give you a quick sense of what's going on here. When you have a spatial file, it creates a new measure. That's the geometry. So this is the parcels themselves. I'm just going to drag this over here. I just want to show this to you so you can see what it is. Again, this is a lot of data, so it's going to take a little while to render. So just hang on while it's doing that. So that's, again, one of the nice things about Tableau is that notice it automatically knows that this is a map. And so just by dragging this geometry over here, it automatically creates all the shapes for the parcels. And this is King County. Here's all of the parcels in all of King County. And we can zoom in. But again, this is going to be kind of slow to do it this way because it's connected directly to that file and it's having to recalculate everything every time. Somebody asked the question, where is this going today? We are going to be talking about major donors. So the reason that we're looking at parcel files and shape files is because this is information that's provided by the government, in this case the county, at the county level, and it has property value information in it. So it has the address and property value. So we can use this as a way to prospect for major donors because we have the property values of everybody in the county. Okay.
So it seems like this is taking a very long time to just do anything. with our map as it stands right now. And I think that, it would get really frustrating to have to work with something, and every time you do anything to the map, it takes anywhere between 5 and 15 seconds to load. So I think it'd be good for us to rectify that right now.
Yeah. So what are some things you recommend we could do?
Well, I think we should make an extract.
Okay. And what does doing an extract do?
So rather than having to basically having Tableau to have to reread the file every time we do something, it just has the extract. And so it doesn't need to calculate anything again and again and again.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save this. We're going to put this in our webinars folder here. And we'll call this Major Donors Webinar. And it's going to ask me to create an extract, and I'll go ahead and put that in the same place. And it's just the parcel address, so that's fine. We'll just leave it called that. So you get this window that pops up that says, when it's loading it for the first time, it may take a little while to create the extract.
The good news is using the extract, it'll just have to load this just once, and then we won't have to deal with long load times anymore.
Someone asked the question, is this available in Canada? And I believe, yes, they do use the GIS format in Canada. So again, we're not doing, this is not in an Excel format. This is in what's called a shape file. So you would download a SHP shape file from the province or whoever it is that's managing that data for wherever it is you are. This is available for free. This doesn't cost any money. I just went to the, in this case, King County website and downloaded it directly. This is all provinces and municipalities, have this available for free. All right, so we created an extract. So let's pop back over here now. A little better.
This will be the last time we have to wait for the query to load. So.
So one of the things we're looking at earlier over here was the present use, right? So there's all these different types of parcels in here. So if we were to go back to the Tableau and filter on the present use, then we can filter down to just certain kinds of properties. So where would we find that? Would that be a dimension or would that be a measure? It's actually put it down here in measures. It's really a dimension because it's a bunch of discrete values, but Tableau saw it as some numbers, so it thinks that this is a measure when it's really a dimension. So we're going to convert it over.
It's thought that because of just the way the county decided to organize data by assigning a numerical value to each one of the different present uses.
I'm going to drag this up to my, did I? I thought I drag it up there already. So I can create a reference table for this, but just in the interest of time, I know over here that a number 2 is a single family. So I can do a number 2 and filter on that. And that means only show me single family houses, right? Don't show me bowling alleys or vacant lots or anything else. Still see doing that filtering is taking some time here.
But this makes sense, just given the fact that we're looking at every property in the county.
Yeah. Okay. So that's one way to filter it. Another way is over here within the data source view. I know this is taking, a little bit of time here, so I just ask that you guys be patient as we're going through this, because this is the kind of stuff that you need to learn about to do prospecting. You're going to get big data sets, whatever it is. In this case, it happens to be a shape file, but you need to learn about these skills because these are going to be important for working for any kind of big data things, right? So over here, under filters, so when I add the filter over here, it's pulling all of the data in and then filtering it after the fact, which takes time every time to do that. But if I go back to my data and say, you know what, I want to filter it at the data level, don't even give me any data unless it has just what I'm looking for in it. So we're going to do that just to try to, make this go a little bit faster here. So go down to present use.
Now it has to rerun the query because now we're changing everything at the data source level. Does look like we have another question coming in here. So the question says, are we able to blend this with postal zip codes? Or what field would you use to blend this with RE?
So yeah, let me go ahead and finish this part here. So I'm doing a data source filter, and we're only going to do when the present use is a 2.
Which is single household.
Right. So we're going to save this extract, and now pop back over here to the sheet. And it's going to be a little bit faster. So we haven't connected it with RE yet. We're going to do that later. So right now we're just working with the data that's in the GIS, within the shapefile that we got from GIS, rather. Okay. Using these map tools over here, I can zoom in, and I can also pan. So I'm going to pan a little bit to look at a more central area here in Seattle. And I can also remove this filter now, since I'm already filtering it at the data level. I don't need to also filter it here because it's redundant. Okay, so I'm just going to pan down a little bit more. So what I'm looking at here is basically, the central part of Seattle. Now the next thing I want to do is look at property values. As I mentioned earlier, within here, there's some information about the appraised improvement value and the appraised land value. So we're going to create a calculated field, and we're going to put these together and call it property value. And I already made a little cheat sheet that we'll give you guys after the webinar that has this calculated field in it. And it's just really simple. It's just adding these two things together. So now I can pull this up onto detail. And actually, I don't want it to be a sum. I want it to be an attribute. I don't want it to add up all the property value in the whole area. Just for the individual property, we want to see what the property value is. Still see there's so much data, this is still taking a lot of time. So one of the things we can do then is filter even more. So we can go up here to property value, and we can say we want to filter it, and we'll have it be based on a range. So we'll say only show me properties that are worth $750,000 or more. And so now, we're getting a little better sense of the kind of stuff we might be looking at, wanting to look at. The other thing we can do is maybe add this as a color. I think to do that, though, we would need to not have it be
An attribute.
An attribute.
There we go.
So now we're seeing just some color that's added to it. So the darker blue is the more expensive properties, or the properties that are worth more, and the lighter blue is worth, worth less. Well, according to our measure here.
Wonder what that really dark blue property is.
Yeah, here's a property that's worth a lot. So there's a lot of data that's in here. So we can pull some other things over, like we can pull over, let's say, the full address. And we can pull over, they have another thing in here called property name. We can pull that over and take a look at that too. And then when we mouse over some of these, we can see, oh, here's one. This property that's worth $125 million actually belongs to someone named Bill Gates. That's the Gates residence. Usually it's not going to have a name associated with it. That's not part of what's collected. It just so happens because of Bill Gates. It is, but a lot of times it's just going to have the county parcel number with it. So you'll have the address of the person and the property value for some of these others, but it's just going to have the parcel itself showing. Okay? And we can pan around here and take a look at some different things. So this gives you a good sense of just kind of where properties are clustered, property values are clustered rather. And I can always hit this button here and reset my map, and then it'll go back down without me having to drill in. I can adjust my filter if I want to get even more expensive houses, or just ranges of houses, that kind of thing. Another thing I can do is over here on map layers. So before Tableau 10.2, like a lot of times to get this kind of information, you could overlay census data on top of it. Like you could say, you know, show me areas where the household income is of a certain amount. The problem is, in this particular case, in the Seattle area, it's going to be above the national average, so it's all the same color. Same with things like, you know, occupations, white collar occupation, that kind of thing. But just for the mapping purposes, some of the things that we might want to do is we might want to look at zip code boundaries and zip code labels, and maybe look at streets and highways, stuff like that. Place names, maybe. Can also have county borders. We're only looking at King County here, for example, so that's, we could do metro boundaries, that kind of thing.
Looks like we have a question that's come in here. I think this is in regard to map layers. So was that map layer all the same color? Because the houses are over 750K.
No, the map layer that I was looking at was average household income, but that's applied to like either a zip code level or a county level. So because we don't have the zip code as a detail, we only had county as a detail, you wouldn't see that particular thing. But even then, all it's showing is just a layer, and it's not a data point. So you can't use that and filter against it. It's just like to give you a sense of where things might be. Should we connect it to some GIF data now?
Yeah, I think
that's... Is there any other questions before we do that about anything else about GIS, shape files, that kind of thing? I know it took us a little while to get to this point. And I'm just showing you, you know, this may not always be the best way to look at it, to look at the actual parcels themselves, but I'm just showing you that this is something you can do once we connect it to the data. There's another way you can do it, which we'll go into in a minute. But this is just instructive just to show you this is a possible way to do it. Okay. You can change the coloring on the map too if you want over here. So it was light and I changed it to normal. So it gives a little more contrast in terms of, you know, you can just kind of see what's going on a little bit more.
It's mostly just water and parks.
Yeah.
Are now colored.
So now we're going to connect it to data. So in this particular case, we're looking at King County data. And so I want to connect it with people that have given money, gift data, right, that's in this county. I just used my friend over here, if you've been to one of my webinars before, I use this tool called Mockaroo for generating test data. So I basically went and uploaded a bunch of addresses from King County into Mockaroo as sort of my potential donor list. And then what it does here is that it's going to automatically just pick some random addresses in there and, you know, assign a pretend gift for them. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. This is going to basically just create gift data for me. But you can do the same with your Razor's Edge. You can just do an extract or an export rather out of Razor's Edge and get some data for that. So the most important things that you'd want to get out for connecting to this kind of data set is what? Probably the gift amount. You're going to care about that. And probably, definitely the address, because that's what we have over here is the full address. So you're going to want to make sure that your address is in the proper format, is in the standard format, so we'll get a match when we connect these two together. Okay, so I downloaded my data. It is here under test GIFs. I'm going to cut that. And I'm going to put it over here. And I'm going to go into Tableau, and I'm going to connect to it. To do that, I say Add. Someone asked about Mapbox. We're not doing Mapbox today. We're going to do Mapbox next week. I'm going to say More, because this is a CSV file. And it doesn't know what to connect it on, so the fields over here in my shape file is going to be full address. And then over here in my GIF data, I'm just going to do address. And I'm going to do an inner join. An inner join means it's only going to find the matching rows between the two. So whereas before it's showing me all the people in the county that have a house value of $750,000 or more, again, appraised value, not necessarily market value, that's just what the county has tax assessed it as. And now I'm going to join it because I'm doing an inner join. It's only going to be plus those people that are in this other data set, which by default with Macaru is just 1,000 rows. So instead of having this huge file that I had before, it's going to be compressed quite a bit and just have the data of people that gave gifts. But again, it's going to take you a little while to redo this extract because just finding all those matching values is going to take a little while. Somebody asked, how did you begin to prepare the join data? I think you're referring to what am I joining it on? So when you do a join, it's going to be joining on certain value within each data set. So the one that I got from the county has an address field in it called address full. And my data that my pretend data, or the data that you would export out of Razor's Edge, would need to have the full address. So over here. So this is a pretend address.
I think if we go back to data source, here we can just show how that join happened.
Yeah, so in here, I'm joining on address full in the shape file, and I'm joining on the field I just called address in my export.
And anytime you add a second data source in Tableau, this join will automatically pop up.
Right.
And just one important thing to note here, this probably seems like common sense, but it's just kind of a good warning to have, that if you were to delete the one on the left, the parcel address, the King County test GIFs that we've made would stop functioning because Tableau is reading the one on the left as the parent data source, depending on how you do the join.
Right.
So just important to keep that in mind.
Exactly. All right, so over here now, you can see my parcels have changed quite a bit. And I'm only seeing now the ones that are matching, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pop this back out again. And actually with all these map layers and stuff now, it's a little bit hard to see because, again, I'm only just looking at the parcels themselves. But what I can actually do is, now that I have this new field in here of gift amount, I can actually add gift amount over to the map. But before I do that, you know, I'm just showing you because the parcel data is in here, and it's just what we started with, doesn't mean we have to just use that and nothing else. So I can actually change this around at this point. I can say, okay, you know what? I get the idea. Yeah, this is where they actually are, and that's their parcel size. But those dots are a little bit too small. Let's do maybe something different instead. So let's look at. If you notice within here, it actually does have the latitude and longitude of each property that's in that data set as well. This is the generated latitude and longitude. It's kind of confusing, but this is what Tableau creates. It's not what's in the map. So just bear with me here. I'm going to play with these around a little bit. I'm going to convert these to dimensions. And I'm going to, instead of doing the parcels, so that's what this geometry field in here is, I'm going to remove the parcels, and I'm going to put in the zip code instead. So we're going to be going for that level of detail, and now I'm going to remove the generated latitude and longitude and put in the actual latitude and longitude, if it'll let me.
And this is one of those rare cases where we have a dimension that is also continuous.
Exactly. So I know that was a little bit confusing to do that, but basically I replaced the latitude and longitude that was generated by Tableau and used the ones that was in the parcel file instead, and then I just added zip code to my level of detail in here. So now what I've done is basically I have a nice little dot on the map. So instead of seeing the teeny tiny parcel, I have a bigger dot that shows me where the people are who donated. And I can also add gift amount on here as well, and I can do that on my color. So right now I have property value on the color. I can remove that, and I can do gift amount. So you can do it a couple of ways. You can say add the color as the gift amount, and maybe the property could be, where's property value? We should make this a dimension too, right?
Yeah.
To the size, maybe? Okay.
It looks like we have a question that's come in, so perhaps you can explain why we had to go through replacing the generated latitude and longitude with the ones that were included with the King County data.
The reason I replaced it is because the latitude and longitude that was generated was based on the parcel information. So it's a little confusing. It's this geometry field that's associated with the parcel itself, versus because the parcel itself is so teeny tiny to represent on there, I wanted to do it instead by the latitude and longitude that's in the data set. Don't get too hung up on it. That's just was a way to make it work.
It's also just a way for us to visualize this in a larger marks.
Somebody asked, do you think it's best to create the export in RE to only have gifts above a certain amount, say $1,000? It's really up to you. I mean, it depends on how many gifts you have and over the time frame. If you have a ton of gifts, like thousands and thousands and thousands of gifts, and you want to limit it, sure. But, you know, sometimes it's better to just pull in as much data as Tableau can handle and then do the filtering in Tableau. Because once you limit your export, then that's all the data you'll ever be able to look at. You also won't be able to see, we're not going to look at this today, but you wouldn't be able to see a case, for example, when somebody gave, like patterns of giving. Okay, maybe they gave $1,000 now, but previously they gave, $200, and before that they gave $50. So then you could extrapolate and say, okay, well, they have increased giving. They gave 50, then they gave 200, then they gave over 1,000. Maybe let's look for other people who gave within a certain level and then gave a little bit more. Hey, would those be good prospects to go to the next level? That kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, at this point, you're just kind of playing around, experimenting with things. But in general, I would say, like, cram as much data into Tableau as it can handle within reason, and then do your calculation and analysis in Tableau. So yeah, I mean, what we're looking at here again, so the color in this case is the gift amount. So I see people that gave more, or the darker colors, and then the size is the property value. And you could do it the other way around, but yeah, this could just give you an indication to see, okay, there might be a cluster of people down in this area. So if you see somebody this is a prospective major donor down here, hey, here's some people that are basically in the same neighborhood that you could also reach out to. And the great thing about this is that, this is connecting to the actual property values in mass across potentially, a whole region of your database versus having to look people up one by one on Zillow or something like that, right? Yeah, I mean, at this point, somebody asked, is it better to look for high property value and low donations? It's totally up to you, and I think that's part of the prospecting fun and analysis that you can do. At this point, you can do different combinations of things. Yeah, you can go up here to gift amount, and we can filter on gift amount even, and say, hey, I'm only interested in people who gave whatever, $500 or more. Filter that out. Or the opposite. Only people who gave $500 or less.
You can just say at most.
Yeah, at most $500. And whose property value is $1 million. Or is in a range of values. We don't want to go after the Bill Gateses because everyone's going after the Bill Gateses. So we'll just say 1 million to 5 million. That kind of thing. So there's all kinds of, things that you can do here, and then this is the kind of stuff that, depending on how you have things broken down for your gift officers, for their different territories and whatnot, it's just another tool for you to be able to, look at things in different ways. Some more questions here.
There are problems. Donor data via Tableau server.
Is there a problem sharing donor data via Tableau server? Maybe not address.
If address is not shown. And I think this is not Tableau server. This is in regards to Tableau public. I would not recommend using Tableau public for any kind of donor information.
Yeah, I would.
Unless you were just using fake data.
Even if you're using Tableau public, even though this is data that's publicly available, like, I don't know. I mean, you're connecting it with your donor data to get to this point, so you definitely would not want to put it on Tableau public. That would be a violation of trust to do that. Even just putting something like this on Tableau public, I guess is fine, if you don't connect it to any data. But once you're connecting it to your data, yeah, definitely do not put anything like that on Tableau public. Another question. So you might have little things like lifetime giving or date amount of the most recent gift. Yeah, exactly. Someone asked a question about having more patterns in the giving. In this particular case, because I'm trying to connect it with this particular data set, I just had to generate fake data, and it was just like a one-time gift, right? It was just this one appeal, if you will, that people responded to. But yeah, you can, and we'll cover that in a future webinar, go into more detail about doing analysis on previous giving or lifetime giving, and that'll provide some insights. That's a little more complicated to do, though, so we can talk more about that at a future webinar. But yeah, just at a high level, you can look at lifetime giving, and then you can do different kinds of calculations based on their patterns. You know, do you see something that's in general, like they're giving at the same level or more over time? Okay, that's one group. Is it somebody that gave a lot in the past and was giving but then stopped for some reason? Okay, maybe that's another group that you go after, you know, that kind of thing. So those are like tools and tricks that you guys are probably already doing now, and you know, we'll just help you kind of look at different ways to do those kinds of things you're already doing now, just to make it easier. And that's the whole purpose of this. It's like, this is nothing, you know, earth-shattering in terms of looking at property values, but it is earth-shattering just to say, dang, you mean I can do this? I can do this all at once across the county, you know, just with one data set? I mean, that's pretty cool to be able to do that. And, you know, it's DIY. I know there's data services that do this for you, but if you're just for some DIY stuff, this is pretty fun. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Those are the main things I wanted to cover with you today. Sorry it took a little while to get into the connecting the data part, but as you can see, when you work with these big data sets, there's some extra time and processing that's involved in that. But really, I mean, these data sets that are out there are gold mine. There's a lot of great data, and the more that you can connect to those, and Tableau is the perfect way to be able to do that because it's built for this very thing.
Yeah, definitely take advantage of the free public data that's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and, you know, and that's the thing with this, is that with the shape files, again, there's more than just the shapes in there. There's all kinds of other data that's in here as well that we didn't even get into in terms of, you know, we were just looking at single-family homes. You know, there's condos, apartments, whatever. There's all kinds of other things that you can analyze and look at in there. So.
Yeah, I think we can spend the last few minutes here with any other questions.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just take a few questions here. We're going to go ahead and close up the webinar in terms of the broadcast.
Recording.
Or sorry, the recording. But yeah, if you have any other questions, we'll stick around here for another few minutes. And thank you for attending today.